Ready to go?
Yes.
That's good.
All right, let's do it.
Let's rock and roll.
Hello, and welcome to DTC Rocket Seat by Pilothouse, the show where we interview Pilothouse clients to talk about the secrets of their incredible growth. Today is a very special episode featuring Just Wears co-founder Alex Walsh. Now, Just Wears is a very cheeky men's underwear brand working with Pilothouse to bulge their sales 5x, reaching a well-endowed six-figure monthly spend in just 3 months with some really cool strategies, including potent pre-sales and cocky creatives. This episode may be rated NSFW, but before we get in, I just wanted to take this moment to ask you to subscribe to DTC. Hit us up on anchor.fm/DTC podcast. Make sure you subscribe, hit us up on all channels. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on Google, we're everywhere. Also, of course, on YouTube and Facebook. So find us there. And of course, go to direct2consumer.co to get our newsletter. Our second ever episode launches tomorrow. And I'm really excited. There's a lot of great info in there. And of course, all the great stuff we're going to discuss today will bubble its way into the next newsletter or a newsletter in the future. So welcome very much. Welcome our team members, lead media buyer Raven Dixon and Liam Robinson, as well as our very special guest, Alex Walsh, co-founder and CFO of JustWears. How are you doing? Alex, how are you?
Hey, Eric. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be on and happy to share our story.
Nice. That's fantastic. And Raven, how about you? What's going on in your world?
Doing great. We're super excited to chat about JustWears. This has been an absolutely amazing account to work on. It's been a lot of fun. So really excited to chat with you guys about it.
Nice. How about you, Liam?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, we've had a really exciting year so far, and a lot of exciting plans coming up for Q4. So we're really stoked.
Nice. So this is, again, just a Rocket Seat podcast where we're basically bringing on the team that had a real hand in the success of one of our amazing clients. So let's dive into it. Alex, can you give us a short synopsis of the JustWears story?
Yeah, happy to. So with JustWears, what we aim to do is reinvent all of men's basics using, essentially incredible, high performance, sustainable fabrics and ergonomic designs to reinvent men's basics. So how do we do that? Essentially, we focus on making incredibly well-made products that solve real functional problems that men have day to day. And these are oftentimes things that go uncovered by many of the major brands that are out there. It could be like Calvin Klein, Hugo Boss, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We really focus on how can we deliver and create awesome products to solve things that exist in everyday life.
100%.
So I guess as we think about what inspired us to get started, essentially it was really started by my co-founder and wife who was in venture capital and investing into consumer businesses. And I think out of that we recognized there was this massive trend of essentially commerce shifting from bricks to clicks. And in that process, it's not just that the big brands are kind of pivoting and shifting their presence to move online. What's actually happening is people are changing the way they want to engage with brands. And with that, it's creating this massive vacuum for new entrants to kind of come in and disrupt previously pretty boring market categories. And I think we saw that several years ago, and you've seen that take place in things like shaving and trousers and glasses and all these different other facets. And I think as we looked at that, we figured, okay, where is there something where existing brands are very out of touch, where there's been very little innovation that's taken place over a long period of time? And where is there something where, you're essentially, if you're going to build a relationship or build a business around, building relationships with people, where is there an area or industry where the value of those relationships is going to be far in excess of the cost to acquire them? And I think for us, we had looked at a whole bunch of different ideas and strategies and different things. And ultimately, I worked in finance, worked long hours, and I frequently complained that, my underwear just didn't fit comfortably after a 12-hour or 13-hour day. And so we took a real hard look at that space through that framework that I laid out before. And we were just blown away by the fact that there hasn't been any real innovation in this product category for a long period of time. And then if you look at the connection that people have with the brands in that space, you go out and you do surveys and you speak with people and you ask them, how connected are you with the current brand of underwear you wear? Or you take content like some of the very hyper-sexualized, essentially what all the main brands have done is go very like this hyper-sexualized selling techniques and say, okay, you put Justin Bieber in a black and white photo, that's supposed to sell underwear. But when you ask people, how do you feel about that? And does this connect with you? You get very low scores, you get very low answers from people. And so that was really, really fascinating for us. But I think what's more fascinating was when we really got into looking at, okay, what is the value of a relationship in this particular category versus the cost to acquire that relationship. And I think when we really looked at that, we recognized that men on average only own 2 brands of underwear. So that was really, really fascinating to see, okay, this is space that's not been innovated in, but has incredibly high brand loyalty while also incredibly low brand affinity. And that just struck us as something where we could really make a difference and really have a change. And so we essentially set out to create a significantly better pair of underwear using some of the best fabrics we could find around the world, and really kind of work with some pretty smart and innovative designers to come up with new techniques, how we could structure the underwear to be more supportive, as well as to allow for better airflow. And we just started testing, we did prototypes, I tried them, we did more prototypes, we got friends to try them. That took about 9 months or a year of development before we finally got comfortable to say, okay, this is something that people really like. Let's go and test, would people buy this? And so we started with just putting it on Kickstarter, and our view was, okay, if people would really want to buy this, we can turn it into a real business and we can get it going. And if not, we're smart people, and I'm sure we can, keep our jobs and do something else. And I think that was kind of the first main, story that kind of got us going, and we were just absolutely blown away to become the most, back to Powell project on Kickstarter in the UK. And then from there, it was just about scaling, building our website, raising some investment, getting going. And then eventually we got spotted by the BBC, who invited us to be on Dragon's Den. And then eventually that led to the opportunity to meet the other founder that I mentioned, who introduced us to Pilothouse. And since then, we've managed to continue to scale the brand and scale the business, I think on an even steeper trajectory than we were on before, which has been pretty cool.
That's really interesting. I love your assessment of the space, finding those. It's like someone doing SEO, finding those high value keywords in low competition spaces. And the other part of that equation is just what a personal item it is. D2C is all about that direct sort of personal relationship you can create with clients and customers. And so it's obviously, you're not going to have a pretty intimate relationship with your underwear for sure.
Well, yeah, like I said, since guys on average tend to be creatures of habit, that once you find something that's really good, you're going to stick with it. And I think we've seen that in our data from once somebody tries, a set of JustWears, it could be that they start with only 2 pairs. But pretty frequently, we see a lot of customers over the next 12 months, a year and a half, change out their entire underwear drawer and end up buying 12 pairs or more. And so I think that kind of, if you can really deliver something that actually helps and changes people's lives, which we get lots of really positive commentary, then, you're kind of there to stay. And it's not the same in every category, right? There's lots of categories that are very fashion oriented, that change over too quickly. But I think this is something that we found that has pretty high repeatability and connects with people.
Pretty fundamental too. And it obviously struck a chord to be able to your path of success is so interesting, right? With your, is my mic breaking up? It sounds a little weird in my speakers, but anyways, no, I think we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah. I just to have that run of success, getting spotted by Dragon's Den, getting, doing so well, resonating so well on Kickstarter, first of all, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What was your experience on Kickstarter like? Did you just kind of go into it natively, or did you have someone guiding you through how to get the best out of it?
I think when you set out to do a Kickstarter, my advice to any founder that's going to do a Kickstarter is don't rush it. Take your time, do it properly, make sure you build out the right page, make sure you do all the things initially. And the key for that platform is to really push through as much traffic as you can on day one. So if you can mobilize all of your friends, all of your family, all of these other people around you to both tweet, post about it, and then also jump in and actually purchase, what that does is it puts you on the front page of Kickstarter. And so long as you're on the front page of Kickstarter, there's just this river or stream of traffic that's coming to you. So essentially, the longer you can stay on that front page, the better. And so what we've found is after, I think, 20 days or so, we kind of fall into page 2. Once you're on page 2, the traffic falls off pretty precipitously. So the key is pretty much just getting into that flow of traffic and staying there and fighting to stay there as much as you can.
And ultimately, you need an idea that resonates. You need, there's no amount of formatting or, if you don't have an idea that really strikes a chord, it's not going to work. And it's pretty awesome that you hit one. It's interesting that no one's really innovated underwear before. You just buy whatever's at Winners or just like a pack of 10 or whatever. But once you buy this quality product that sort of has, different product design, it's something that you convince yourself that you're worth it basically. And this is, you get that brand affinity.
For sure. And I think the way we see it is there's different categories, right? So there are the Hanes Fruit of the Loom type stuff that's out there that maybe my dad might wear, and you buy it for, I don't know, $5 for a pack of 10. But I think where we really have where we really focus is on people that want to buy, quality made products. And I think what they find is when you start venturing into some of these other, quality companies, like Calvin Klein or Hugo Boss, you actually find that underwear is kind of an afterthought for them. And it's surprising that the fabrics that they use, the styles that they use are actually pretty cheaply made. We've looked into the costs, and we spend 3, 4, sometimes 5 times, in terms of the fabric, in terms of the design, in terms of these other things that, many of the major brands are, basically spending on their products. Meanwhile, they're pricing them at $25, $30 per pair, which is just disingenuous. And I think we're looking to change that in a big way by properly listening to people, taking on that feedback, and then making those innovations quite quickly or changes quite quickly, and then relaunching them back to the market and seeing how they do.
It's the perfect example of a legacy industry, just sort of relying on these, Calvin Klein photos, that they've shot 5 years ago or whatever, and being able to go in there and as a scrappy D2C brand, eat their cheese, which is always awesome. I wanted to move into some of those early days working with the Pilothouse team and just negotiating what the brand voice would be like. Like I imagine with your sort of like down to earth approach, like not going for that high fashion model type thing, you've always had a pretty frank voice. Can you talk a little bit about where the voice was at before Pilothouse, and then what the process was like working with Liam and Raven on how that voice would carry into the ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with our particular brand voice, maybe I should say, so with our products, we try and make incredibly well-made products that solve real functional problems. These are things like ventilated materials on the underside to keep your balls cool, to support sperm count, stiffer fabrics in the legs to keep them from rotting up. All these sorts of little kind of innovations with the product that are very functional in a way. Now, with our brand and the brand message that we want to send is we ultimately want to take a radically different approach to what the major brands have done in the space. Instead of going down this route of hypersexualization, we really want to make people feel essentially comfortable, confident, and fun. That's pretty much the values that people care about. And we want to essentially do so by using a lot of humor in our brand, which both kind of makes it a little less intense, a little less serious, but also, more importantly, it serves as a window to really begin a dialogue about a lot of these issues that go untalked about. This could be anything from, testicular cancer to something more, to something less serious, like, post P drippage, which, is definitely a problem if you're on a date. And so I think by, breaking that down and kind of approaching it in this very kind of fun style, that's where we kind of look to differentiate ourselves. Now, with working with, Liam and Raven, I think what you always look for when you want to work with an agency is an agency that's going to come in and really kind of be part of your team, and it's going to take on board your brand values and to really both build out the brand, but do it in a way that aligns with essentially what it is that you're aiming to achieve as a founder. And I mean, thus far, we've now been working with Pilothouse for 6 months, and I think we've been able to do that and balance that incredibly well. So I think one of the things as a founder you're often constrained by early on is your ability to produce great quality content. Just producing constant content for different seasons and different situations takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and it's very it's a very involved process. And I think by partnering with someone like Pilothouse, you're able to essentially get that function and get the optimization and get all these both little and big, tweaks to marketing platforms that can really, kind of help reduce that cost of acquisition in the digital world.
And allow you to focus on the product and the long-term vision and, all those types of things.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think maybe just to add on that a bit more broadly is I think when you think about brand for online companies like ours or any companies that would work with someone like Pilothouse, I think there was an old way of doing something where essentially for big brands or for basically premium brands, in the non-digital space, so long as you got on the high street and you had a nice storefront, enough people would walk by and they would kind of come into your store and they might pick something up and buy it. In the vast expanses of the online, world, you can create the most wonderful, beautiful storefront you want, and if you don't take a view on the space, if you don't, really differentiate yourself and have something to shout about and be loud about, then it's very hard to kind of gather that interest and momentum and just kind of fervor and community around you. And so I think by taking something like this and really being bold about it and approaching a lot of these men's wellness issues in a more functional way, as well as having this very differentiated brand tone, I think it's been something that we've thus far has found is working quite well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, Raven, I know, talk a little bit about, the opportunity that we had at Pilothouse and, when this campaign kind of came to you and Liam as well, like just talk a little bit about those early days and how exciting things were and what you did.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Liam and I can both easily say we got very, very lucky in the sense that this brand came to us with a very clear identity. Alex did the research, him and his co-founder, Young, they know what's going on. They knew the market, they knew the brand voice. So when Liam and I got to look at this and started chatting with them, we could not have been more excited. It's funny, it's creative, it's out there. All the content is meant to be scroll stoppers. That's what we really go for. You only have so much space to grab somebody. So you need to ensure that you're hitting them, as any DCT brand, the right message at the right time to the right person. So that's what we really kind of strive for, that scroll stopping content. It was definitely a whirlwind launch. It was really exciting the first couple weeks. We started working with JustWears just before Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day is a pretty exciting time for them. So we were kind of getting our Valentine's Day promotion, kind of doing all of our account audits. And I remember one of the first pieces of content, Alex, that we had sent you. We have a really, really amazing creative team behind us, and they had put together a male torso kind of on the bottom. So he was in JustWears with his legs, but the top half was just a bouquet of roses. And when Evan, our creative guy, he sent that to me and I burst out laughing. And I was like, okay, well, we're brand new into this relationship. We have no idea how far we can push the envelope with Alex and Young. We don't know how they're going to respond to this. So we sent it to them and Young was like, this is great. And Alex, they were laughing and we got really lucky that they've allowed us to really push the envelope in terms of creative and content, and have really given us the freedom to let the data do the talking and to say, okay, let's try things outside of the box. And we saw great success with that style kind of in those early days around Valentine's Day.
Very cool. I just, this makes me thinking of Evan. Evan is also someone who's helped me editing the podcast so far. He's amazing to work with. It really reminds me that a team goes as far as its talent in a lot of ways. And it's amazing when just individual ideas of, that are outside the box or whatever can resonate and land. And that's only coming from, his creative mind in this case, right?
Definitely that. And the idea that Alex is so open to letting us try everything. You see so many direct to consumer brands online, and myself as an educated consumer, I look at every ad that comes up on my feed. It's really hard not to, being in this space. And you see so many ads that are just kind of boring. Like, they don't really stand out. They don't really say a lot. And so it's really, really great for us that this brand came to us already knowing that that's a piece that you need. And that Alex is like, yeah, it's weird. Let's try it. We're running ads right now with like elephant heads in boxers. Like, it's great and it's working. So we're really lucky that Alex is that type of a client where he's like, yeah, let's, whatever you guys think is best, let's let the data work.
And you can probably only get away with it with a brand with as much like integrity, technology, and like the fact that you have something you can shout about gives you more freedom to shout about it in, funnier ways, I think. Liam, what do you think about the brand? What were some of your early contributions that you enjoyed that worked?
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of a funny story. So I know, like Alex said, we were kind of introduced through the Look After My Bills connection. So I had heard about JustWears' potential involvement with Pilothouse kind of in the early days. So I checked out JustWears, and I saw, I think the first joke I saw was like, or our underwear is a palace for your phallus. And I just like kept scrolling, and the humor side was so obvious and a forefront of the messaging. So I reached out to the team and said, hey, like, I want to work on this account if we get it, because the underwear product obviously was great, but the whole brand humor aspect was something that I thought would be super disruptive on, Facebook specifically. So, between Raven, Evan, and I, one of like the biggest things we really focused our time into was just basically like ball puns. You know what I mean? Like, we were trying to be as funny and as engaging and disruptive as possible. So, we've had a lot of fun writing different types of copy, like making jokes, like just engaging with people that it's like, hey, like, like your underwear right now is probably like this. And, we're making jokes about like the actual improvements that JustWears can bring to you, but like in a funny way that resonates with people. So in terms of ad copywriting, angle testing, this was kind of a home run right off the bat. I'd say, just in terms of creative freedom and being able to really try and come up with cool, engaging ideas to write ads around. So that's one thing I definitely really enjoyed, like right off the bat with JustWears for sure.
Nice. I wanted to ask, like, have there been examples where you've gone too far, where you've pushed too much on the puns, and how did you know?
Well, I wouldn't say Alex maybe speak to this as well, but like in terms of the messaging, I don't think we've seen too much red flags. I know with like particular images, it's more of a Facebook compliance thing with like, you can't like focus on certain body parts. If you're modeling underwear, there's like certain limitations with the type of modeling you can do. But on the pun side, I don't think we've really like, because like we do keep it like funny, and obviously like when you're playing within the compliance boundaries of Facebook, it's relatively clean for the most part. But yeah, like we definitely do push the boundaries quite a bit, and that's part of the fun of it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Does it carry through to the comments as well? Are these actual, do you speak in the same tone or through the comments as well? And what side do we handle that, or is that on JustWears side?
I've been handling most of the comments thus far, and I mean, I'm not sure what your audience is like, but if your audience is other founders, I think what I've found is been incredibly effective. Is if you take the same piece of ad content with many comments on it that the brand has actually replied back with something witty or interesting, you find that ad has much significantly higher levels of engagement than the same exact copy without the comment. And so, I mean, there have been lots of examples, but one was, I think somebody said, why am I being targeted by this? And just jumping in and saying, it's really nice to see that Facebook is looking out for your balls. Like those sorts of things get, hundreds of likes, and then replied comments, and that gives you kind of more things to then punch back in a way with something that's witty and funny, so long as it's clean and really keeps the brand from being a gimmick. Because I think what's core is there's a very fine line when you're doing this is you always want to be funny, but then with your actual products, you need incredibly well-made products, and you need to put forth a really quality story, and as well as you need to back it up. And so I think for us as founders, we're focused on, okay, how can we back that up, and then how can we continue to innovate in our space, while also doing this with the ads, because you never want to be just funny, because then you become a gimmick, and then you become less relevant over time as you scale.
You wouldn't get away with it too, right? If you didn't have a great product that was shipping out to people, I don't know, you wouldn't get that long-term engagement that just seems to be rolling and building up. Also, those comments have to be a real treasure trove for future angles, and there's so much customer research that goes into those engagements. They're just sort of invaluable. It's interesting to hear as a founder that that's something that you're focused on, but I see the way it would plug in. I wanted to ask, like, what's your mix of promotional versus just like, do you sell a little bit in the comments, or is it pretty much just sort of engaging stuff?
Mainly engaging stuff. I think the ads themselves do enough of that. I think for us, what's incredible is we've had so many different people come back and tell us how much they love the products, that when we run an ad, oftentimes before I've even had a chance to jump in, there's 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 or more people that have already commented on it and provided social proof to that ad. So they've said, yeah, I bought this for my husband. He absolutely loves them. Total game changer. And when you see one of those, you're like, okay, maybe that's right or not wrong. But when suddenly you see 10 of them, it tells you, okay, there's something real here. And we'll jump in and we'll, reply and appreciate them with a gift or something along those lines, to just thank them. And because we care a lot about the customers that we have, and we want to make sure that if something, let's say they got the wrong size or something happened, we want to make sure, like we really go the extra mile to make that right, because oftentimes the cost of a single extra pair of underwear or something like that is fairly minimal for the experience that it's like for you to say, I complained, and we say, yes, I hear you, we're taking steps to correct that, and you actually see action. You're like, wow, this brand's pretty cool. And that will go a long way, not with that person, but also with their friends, their family. People talk about their experiences when they engage with a brand, right? Which is why it's so important to really add value to people and also listen to them.
And I hear more and more about the equations for acquisition changing to really, you have to focus on LTV if you're going to be a long-term player in the space. Really understanding the life cycle of that customer and really being able to go that extra mile to keep them and their families and their communities engaged in your brand. It's just an investment you kind of have to make at this point, rather than just sort of churning and burning new customers all the time, because you just can't rely on that with the acquisition costs changing the way they do.
Yeah, and when you start to treat the people that purchase your products not as customers but as friends, you're kind of blown away by what comes out of that. I mean, we've had more than a couple, investors in our business, come through our customer chat saying, hey, I love your product. kind of get involved in some way, shape, or form. I have no experience investing, but this is a really cool company that I want to get involved with. Or it could be, going and telling other people about it. We've had one customer that's now gone and referred over 110 different people, which I'm blown away by. And then, he even went out and created a Just Wears fanboy Twitter account, which is just, it's just so awesome to see when you're a founder and you go out to kind of create something, you don't know how it's going to be received. And then these people that you don't know, want to take such an active role in supporting you and helping you in many different ways. I think that's been, really a vote of confidence. And then if you, can appreciate that and accept that and take that on board, you can start to move a lot faster with the support of many more people. So, now we have over 30 angel investors in our business, and they've really gone a long way in terms of, this is a perfect example, introduction to Pilothouse. Many other introductions that we've gotten have come from this sort of community element. So I think it's, as a founder, it's key to both be resilient to kind of go through the ups and downs, but also just be open to really, connecting with the many people that will come across your brand in that time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great benefit of being in that investment world. The funding, obviously, but the introductions, the network that you create. Like, what do you recommend to entrepreneurs who maybe, what is the best way for entrepreneurs to sort of start creating that network of mentors? Have you ever, do you just basically go look for investment, and if you have a good product, it'll come, or what's your thinking there?
So with mentors specifically, they come in many different forms, but I think oftentimes what we've found is it kind of come several different ways. So we've had people reach out directly to us. We've just had one of the co-founders of Ted Baker who wants to get involved in our brand. He just saw an advertisement and said, love the brand, really interesting, and sent us an email. And same thing happened with BBC. But in terms of early days, you really got to be proactive. So you got to go out to your network. Our key, basically, this kind of comes to our key tagline, which is also a big part of our company culture, which is be humble, but have balls. And with that, we mean go out there, take chances, take risks. You're going to fail. You're going to get no's. You're going to get more no's than you can expect, but keep going. And essentially, with the be humble part, it means, basically be willing to look at your mistakes, evaluate your mistakes. How did you do a particular meeting wrong? How did you do a particular pitch wrong? Did you offend that person and why? And then take that on board. If you have the humility to properly change through that, then that process of failure doesn't become a process of, oh, I feel emotionally crushed by this. It becomes okay, I got that wrong. I know I need to get 5 more no's or 9 more no's before I get 1 yes. And so you just got to keep rolling with it and keep going. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I think, we have a lot of friends that have founded different businesses. And I think that's the biggest thing that's differentiated those that have been successful with those that maybe had a little bit of a tougher time.
It's just that willingness to keep going.
Well, it's not so much a willingness to keep going. It's a willingness to also take on feedback. Because oftentimes you could be serving a product that you think is phenomenal or you think is great, but if you're not properly testing and you're not getting those steps of validation, then essentially you want to build products that the market is pulling, the company up, as opposed to you feel like you're constantly pushing it. And so that is a very hard process to figure out in the early days because it requires so much testing, so much failure. But then you got to take on board, okay, these are the people that we really want to serve, really want to help. These are the features that are really working. And these are the things we need to change. And so that process of iteration, when I talk about going through 40 different prototypes before we launched, that was a long process. And since then, we've probably gone through another 30 or 40 different changes that we've made to the product itself. So it's just this constant process of essentially taking on board negative criticism, because any negative criticism is an opportunity to essentially, improve where you're going and how you're doing things.
Totally. Nice. I want to get into a little bit more about the Dragon's Den experience, but I just had a question first. This is not on our list, but I know UGC is just the currency of social ads at this point. It's the kinds of ads that work, for almost any product. I wanted to talk about like what the UGC sort of loop is like with JustWears, because I know that's such an important thing with brands, is to just have that constant stream coming in, whether you're reaching out via email after the fact to incent people to do it. I was just wondering what that process looks like for JustWears.
So that's something that UGC in our particular category is a little bit difficult. And I think it's because you may, if you have, let's say, a beautiful piece of luggage and you're taking a trip, it's very easy for you to take an Instagram photo of you in some nice location with that piece of luggage. But if you're a guy, who might not be, super comfortable or confident about their own body shape, to take a photo in your underwear and post it online is a pretty big thing. So I think while we have this amazing, community of people that are involved in our brand and comment on our ads, a lot of our UGC is more in the format of text and in the format of people commenting and getting involved. And I guess the way I think about it is, let's say you're at a party, Eric, you may not say, to your friend, like, dude, I got the greatest new underwear, I need to tell you about it. I mean, you might not, but most guys probably wouldn't.
I tell Liam.
And so, yeah. But if you saw some really funny, really interesting, really pithy, piece of online digital content, it's very easy for you to say, oh, this is funny, let me tag somebody in that. So in our first successful ad set that we ran, which was kind of just including a couple puns, we counted it up, and very quickly we had, 1,000 comments. And in those comments, there was something like 400, 500 people tagged by other people that hadn't been part of the original audience. And so I think it's all about your brand tonality and the type of content you're putting out. And then obviously you have to understand how are people going to engage with that. So UGC is is part of it, and we do funny things where we give rewards for things like fun competitions and other things where people can get involved in the humor of the brand and really kind of get involved in the building of the brand. But it's not too often. I mean, we have had some pretty funny photos in odd places of next to waterfalls and like really interesting travel locations for people that are really bold. But that is more of the rarity than the norm.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting because there is total UGC there. It's just in a different format kind of thing. It's either text and it's really that the share is like the most underrated aspect of D2C marketing. I think you can't build for it. Like you can't optimize for it on Facebook, but when you can, create your content and your products in a way that just lends to it, it's just a massive X factor, I feel like, in how you scale.
Yeah, we hear a lot of kind of more of the static images with testimonials, and that's what we find. It's hard to do a video UGC, as Alex mentioned, of somebody, wearing the product. This is a very personal product. So we find, just using the text format, so it's a different form of UGC, still works really, really well. So a lot of social proof, and kind of pairing that, your underwear drawer full of JustWears with. We've had some hilarious testimonials come through. One of the ones, I think this came through before Pilothouse, was it's like unicorn skin for your balls was one. We had another one that said, these are the underpants of legends, the Holy Grail. This is great UGC content. We just use it in a different format, I think, than a lot of other products and other industries do.
I love it. Like just those pun threads on Reddit. People just love puns. They'll go for hours. So it's amazing to be able to harness that in the name of unicorn balls. No, it's super exciting. I want to talk a little bit about Dragon's Den. Now I know not everyone. It's sort of it's very lucky to have been on Dragon's Den. It's an incredible thing. I'm always interested in the way that brands can use experiences like that. Now, Dragon's Den, Shark's Tank, or even just other kinds of external promotion. And, very interested in the way you can use those third-party promotional things in your actual ad funnel. So why don't we start just quickly with a quick rundown of the Dragon's Den experience, Alex, and then we can go a little bit into how we've leveraged it in the marketing.
Yeah, of course. So let's see, how did the experience start? I would say essentially it started with basically a cold email to us from somebody that claimed to be a BBC editor that was interested in our brand and would like us to potentially come on the show. And when I saw the email, I essentially thought it was some type of scam because you do get these sorts of things in the UK. And I just didn't reply for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until finally I read it again and it looked kind of legit. So I said, okay, why don't I jump in and reply? And it turned out it was a real person. It was really active at the BBC, and they said, no, we would like you to come down to headquarters and do an audition. And so we went in there, we did that, went quite well. And then from there, we said, yeah, well, in the next couple of months, we'd like you to come in and actually pitch on the show. And so we prepared, essentially for us as founders, we tend to over prepare for everything. So that meant watching, the past 3 years of the show and putting together a big spreadsheet of all the questions that have ever been asked, or putting together a detail of what offers could be made and what ranges and how to think about these sorts of things for businesses at various different stages. And we went in there really well prepared and got in front of the dragons. And I mean, they tell you that if they don't like you and they kind of just laugh you off the stage and you're probably done in about 30 minutes. And if they like you and they want to negotiate deals, it might take longer. We didn't realize it at the time, but by the time we had walked out of the den, it was about 2 hours that had passed, standing there on camera, spotlights on, about 15, 20 people just staring at you. And, first time I've ever worn makeup in my life, but no, it was a really good experience. We had a lot of fun with the dragons. I think in the editing, they cut out some of the best bits, but nonetheless, it was pretty cool to be on there with your wife and co-founder, and then also to have done a good enough pitch to get investment interest from the dragons. And then I think after we went off the show, well, basically, maybe not to spoil it or give it away, but I guess I am spoiling it, but essentially we said no to the offers on camera. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, we were pretty surprised to see them actually improve their offers again. But I think ultimately we ended up kind of declining that as well, just because we've had such support from so many great investors that we wouldn't be where we are without them. And to do something, I guess, to take a deal at a very different valuation that maybe puts them in a worse situation, it's just not the way that we do business. And so I think overall, we were really, really fortunate to have that happen and to be involved and to get to meet the dragons and go through that whole process. And I think it's added some legitimacy to the brand, because when people see that you've been on a major TV show that's not just 2 people in a garage somewhere, it's actually a real brand that's been on TV, that's has some legitimacy to it. And so since then, we've seen a good pickup in our performance of.
It's interesting that that the real value in the dragons or the sharks is the experience. It's what you go through. A lot of the people that we've worked with who've leveraged this in their ads, for instance, have walked away or didn't get an offer, or it's like you really get the value from it up front with the publicity. And then, if you have to be willing to it's like their investment is like a legacy brand in a way. You have to take, you're paying for the names on it, more so than maybe what you're even worth. And if you've already got the value from it, from the experience, then it makes sense to kind of walk away in that case.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I didn't think about it in that framework. I just felt like if I'm going to if somebody is added a lot of value to our brand already, to then give a 70% discount to somebody else because they have a nice brand name, just doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
And so when people are really getting involved, giving us advice, mentoring us through difficult decisions and challenges, that's something that we value a lot more than I guess slapping or name dropping around that.
Nice. Well, it'll be good for your LTV, I'm sure. So can we talk a little bit on the Pilothouse side? Just we've got about 10 minutes left here. Just wrap up. Just tell us the story a little bit about the growth of the account, and specifically how that relates to Dragon's Den and our use of that.
So I think the first thing that we did that was a huge and a big piece of our strategy was to create pre-sales. We use this internal tool called Rubik's. I know it's been talked about a lot on the podcast. It allows us to divert traffic to multiple landing pages and then gives us really, really strong data on each of those pages, which allows us to make more educated decisions. A key piece of that Rubik's funnel as well is that it allows you to change the landing page without actually changing the URL. So what that means is that you can have ads with stacked engagement on them if they're a little bit more generic. And then you can kind of drive traffic to different landing pages without ever changing that. Therefore, you can kind of stack your engagement, your ad wins at auction, you know, kind of those things with the ad side of it. So we originally made 3 pre-sales. We had a long form Dragon's Den, a short form Dragon's Den, and one that was a little bit more of the founder story mixed with Dragon's Den. We were able to then drive ads through those, find a winner, and then just completely exploit it. It's interesting when you see which creatives win on the data side of things. I think the one that actually ended up winning was not one of the ones that we spent tons of time making in-house. It was a really simple picture that, Alex, I'm assuming that you took that image. It was one of his wife just kind of holding up boxers, and that's our winning Dragon's Den ad. And to this day, we've still been able to leverage that ad and to leverage that social proof of, yes, the dragons made an offer, but, you know, JustWears didn't take it. But there's a big piece of social proof in there of saying that in an ad, the dragons made an offer, because then people think, well, it must be a really great product.
Very cool. And then who wrote the copy? Alex, did you sort of write your story and that's what's on the landers, or did we sort of change it with one of our copywriters?
Well, we have a team here. I mean, we write a lot of the copy ourselves, as well as I think it's been a good partnership between both sides. So I think,
Nice. And it's really allowed things to take off over the last little while. That's great news. Nice. What are your goals, Alex, with JustWears over the next, like, say, the next year?
I mean, our primary goal is to really build brand awareness and to build our brand up to be a significant player, first off in the UK, but then more globally. And then to really focus on how we can functionally solve more and more of these issues. So we all the time have people coming into us sharing very personal stories. We have one investor, and we've had multiple customers that have come through and talked about, you know, their battle with testicular cancer and how they had to, you know, have one of their testicles removed and what that means for them. You know, we've had people come through asking questions that they would not feel comfortable asking to major brands. Things like, you know, how do I handle if I'm too small or too big, or, you know, too wide or too whatever, and all these different things that initially as a founder you feel like, oh, this is a little awkward. But then you realize, okay, actually this means it's working. This means that what we're doing here is relevant, because we're actually helping people deal with many of these things that you know, they might not feel comfortable in going elsewhere. So I think what we look to do over the next year or so is to really continue to innovate our products to address more and more of these functional problems, to expand our range, and to really go and push and basically tackle a lot of these problems that are really being overlooked by pretty much every other brand in our space. And I think if we can do that effectively, you know, we'll be able to scale very quickly, or just as quickly as we have, if not more so. And that's the goal for us.
Very cool. And again, that will cascade down into new angles. I think fertility is going to be a big angle. I've been hearing things just recently about that, you know, there's sort of like a hidden fertility crisis going on in the world. And if your underwear are a better choice in that arena, it's a pretty serious topic for a lot of people. But if there's conversations happening there, that could be quite helpful as well. The other thing that I would say, this is my one, I'm a bit of an underwear connoisseur, and I would say the one thing that I love in underwear is a covered elastic, a fabric covered elastic. I find elastic to be a little bit chafing, a little bit like sharp sometimes. I found a pair of underwear that has like a thinner elastic and it's actually covered by fabric, and they're my sort of most comfortable pair. So that's my one underwear hot tip.
It's
Nice.
funny. It's funny you say that, Eric, because like back in I think this was in March, we were doing a lot of angle testing where we would create campaigns that would be broken out of the ad set level, specifically focusing on problems that underwear solve. So like one of them was just wears last longer than normal underwear. One of them was these are great for sports or running or athletics. And then one was like lines from the elastic, and JustWears has obviously like there's been a lot of work that's gone into making the waistband comfortable, and so like that's actually a specific problem point that we focused on as an angle.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I want to take a step back because you touched upon something that is something that we care a lot about. So you mentioned fertility. People don't realize this, but male sperm count on average in developed nations has actually declined by 40% over the past 40 years.
It's crazy.
It's insane. And the reason for it, well, there's a couple of reasons for it. Essentially that, we basically, our diets have declined, we're more stressed than we were. And also we spend more time seated than, ever before in human history. Now, if you think about it, anatomically, why do our balls hang away from our body? Well, it's because they're meant to be a couple degrees more cooler than our actual body temperature. So when you're sitting for 12 hours at a time, what you're effectively doing is you're increasing the temperature of your balls and effectively frying your sperm. And so what we look to do is say, okay, how can we use ventilated materials to make sure there's still some airflow there, to make sure that you can kind of release that excess temperature. And that's one of the key features of one of our products. And now what we're doing is we've actually just brought on a new team member to focus on product development specifically. And we're actually reaching out to partner with, like Oxford University to really do much more scientific testing and clinical studies around how can we really lower the temperature, through testing many different types of fabrics around that specific issue. Because it's actually been a bigger issue in Europe, and particularly in the Netherlands and Denmark. It's started to become for male fertility has started to become a real issue. And I think if you can, properly focus on addressing this and do that early with something that's, not just a clinically provided solution, but something that's actually fun, comfortable, and functional, then I think that's going to be a really big opportunity and really helpful over time in a lot of people.
Yeah, it seems like a big one to focus on. I know Europe is a little bit ahead of the curve on a lot of different things, and we're just starting to hear about it over here, which means I think it'll be a big deal here in the coming years as well.
I was just gonna add on there. That was the inspiration for our "Let Your Gonads Be Nomads" copy.
Yeah.
Nice. I think, and things definitely do get hot when you're sitting in the rocket seat, as we all know. So we should all be wearing our JustWears today. I wanted, Alex, you've provided so much wisdom here. I think for entrepreneurs, I'm excited to cut these into clips and share it out on social. Did you have any parting words before we wrap up today about to all the brand owners in the audience here? What's your like biggest kernel of wisdom?
Biggest kernel of wisdom.
Or what are you focused on right now? Yeah.
Well, I would say in terms of building a business and building a brand, for us, it's all about testing a little bit and basically continuing to test a little bit until you really get a pull. And then when you really get a pull, then move to the next stage. So I'll give you a good example where we spent 9 months testing the product, and then we did a Kickstarter, and that was kind of our first major pull of saying, okay, people would be willing to buy this. The next major pull was, shipping out 8,000 pairs of underwear around the globe and seeing, okay, would people be interested in like, would people actually like this? Would they want to come back? And right off the bat, we had hundreds of customers coming back and saying, these are awesome. How can I get more? And this was before we even had a website. So we were manually, shipping and taking PayPal orders and doing all this stuff. So that basically was enough of a pull to say, okay, let's raise some investment. Let's get a website up and going. Let's see if we can, figure out this marketing thing and get all these different pieces in place. And essentially, over the course of the next 12 months, it was really focused on, okay, can we optimize, figure that out? And then we really got a pull in that stage to say, okay, now let's go and properly scale this. And I think as a founder, you're always kind of tinkering, you're always kind of experimenting. And I think the more tinkering and experimenting you do, the more likely you are to find that thing that connects, that clicks, that gives you that pull. And then when you do, you got to be willing to kind of step forward and say, okay, let's go do this. And I think if you reverse that and you do it in the opposite direction and you kind of step forward and do that without a pull, you might be able to figure it out, but oftentimes you'll run into a brick wall. And I think that's kind of what I mean by, as a founder, you want to be pulled up through the market rather than kind of, pushing your way and kind of, trying to break through the walls to get there.
I think that's really smart. I think as an entrepreneur, you can sometimes feel when you're doing things that you feel you should do. It's like, okay, I've got to do all these things because my idea looks like this and I should be doing all this. But that idea of doing it more by feel, of doing these sort of more limited testing until you really feel that pull, it makes it makes a lot of sense just to have that push-pull relationship right. I think it's a good way of putting it.
If you go back and look at the early days of the internet, I mean, what's really set apart companies like Google and Facebook was the number and the amount of tests that they were doing. So they were just testing many different things, many different ways more quickly. And I think the more tests you do, the more quickly you're able to iterate.
Well, and of course,
as Raven spoke.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think as Raven said, you need to have a wide leeway to test many different angles, channels, ideas. And if you have that wide leeway, you can let the data do the talking for you. And then you can also, gather qualitative data by speaking with people and recording that, which we speak to a lot of customers pretty much on a weekly basis. Nice.
Well, fantastic. Speaking of A/B testing, you've got to go to directtoconsumer.co right now. Sign up for our newsletter. We have a feature piece on exactly how to use Google to do simple A/B tests on your webpage. We're doing a test right now. We'll be reporting on it. So go subscribe. Go subscribe on Spotify, on Apple, on Android as well. Thank you so much for coming on the Rocket Seat today, Alex. We look forward to what we can do in the rest of 2020. Q4 should be a big one. Any big plans for 24, Liam and Raven? What are we cooking up?
Well, obviously we're in the 180 day of Christmas now, so we're obviously gonna, a lot of holiday promotion to come. But we are very excited just to really build out our campaign structure to scale up as much as we can for the holiday season.
And the Jingle Balls puns. You gotta build up a big arsenal of puns for Christmas.
Lots more Christmas puns, lots more ridiculous outside of the box content, all the good stuff.
Nice. I was going to say, we ran a pun competition last year for Christmas, which is actually something that we're now converting into Christmas packaging. And I'll tell you, the winner was show Santa how to carry a sack with style.
Well, I think that's a great note to end the podcast on. We are in the 180 day window for your Pixel. So everyone start stocking those stuffings. And thanks to everyone for coming on the Rocket Seat today. This was awesome.
Yeah,
cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Wanted to take this moment to ask you to subscribe to D2C. Hit us up on anchor.fm/DTC podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Hit us up on all channels. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on Google, we're everywhere. Also, of course, on YouTube and Facebook. So find us there. And of course, go to directtoconsumer.co to get our newsletter. Our second ever episode launches tomorrow.